Content warning for discussions of extremist racism. Someplace underneath.
White supremacist ideology, if left unchecked, always ends in violence.
It's violence Idahoans have seen far too much of in the past few months and years. Tony McAleer knows all too well who might be recruited to violent extremist groups. He's the author of the book, The Cure for Hate, and helps communities respond to the threat of violent white supremacist groups he was once a part of.
Most people think it's the ideology that draws people in, but the ideology is really, and research has shown this, the ideology is really secondary.
So if that is secondary, what's the primary reason for people to join these hate groups? Well, McAleer says people are looking for acceptance.
If you think about the loneliness and the despair and the craving for community and belonging and acceptance, very, very powerful.
Which is why the U.S. Attorney for the District of Idaho, Josh Hurwitz, says isolation is one of the big red flags that someone you may know is being radicalized.
Everyone should look out for their family members, their colleagues, their coworkers. If you're seeing a change of behavior or withdrawal from sort of what we'd consider normal society, see what might be possible in a safe way to try to get that person the support that they might need.
Man, I feel really bad for these guys. I know they're horrible, like white nationalists, but
I thought you were being sarcastic.
No, like think about just sitting alone and like maybe you don't get along with your family, you don't have anybody in your town that gets you, and then you just go log in on the internet and they're like, it's actually everybody else's fault. And you're like, all right. And then next thing you know, you're committing a hate crime.
You know, I think that there's really some worth in being compassionate towards them. I struggle with that, and I know you do too. You get very angry. I don't necessarily think, the male loneliness epidemic should be like, we need to
cuddle them because they can be dangerous.
Yeah, and also, they've been offered the cuddling, and in many cases they're not accepting it.
No.
So I wanted to start this episode with that clip. That was a segment from KTVB Idaho, discussing extremism in Idaho, and the newscaster was interviewing a man named Tony McAleer, who used to be a neo-Nazi and has since left the community. I guess you'll call it a community. I don't know what else to call that. The friend group left the chat of neo-Nazi to go, fight against it, and he's written some books. And so he was offering his insight, which is not incorrect, in my viewpoint. Welcome to Someplace Underneath. I'm Natalie Jean.
I'm Amber Nelson.
That a lot of these groups come from people being isolated or feeling isolated.
The loneliest I got, you know what I did? I joined an MMA gym because I literally needed a hug and I was angry. I mean, I guess that's what they do, but it's like centered around more hatred.
But when you joined, didn't you say you got a couple dudes who tried to actively hurt you without the sportsmanship?
Yes.
Cool.
So that was pretty
Maybe
unfortunate.
you would have found more camaraderie. No, you wouldn't have. I'm just kidding. You would not have. You would not have found more in the neo-Nazi movement. That was not a good joke. Natalie.
No, it's okay. Anything goes here.
Yeah, and that is so true, I think. But the reason I started with that clip is because I am confused, and we're sorting through on the next couple episodes as to why somebody who is already part of a high control group that is never isolated, is constantly given friends for free, finds themselves in this secondary other group.
Well, it's easy to join a cult once you're already kind of in one. And even if you left that one, I think your brain is sort of programmed to be kind of told what to do.
I think you're right. And I know that there are statistics to show if you leave one high control group, a lot of times many people fall into a second one before they can kind of escape. Mm-hmm. It's what you know, right? But the specific nature of the LDS community falling into these groups, I almost feel like he's a little bit unique in that they sometimes almost like cross streams in a way. A lot of these white nationalist groups, as we'll talk about today, do cross streams. They do all kind of hang out together and kind of create this web. And it's a little bit scary how easily the people inside of the doctrine of the LDS Church can kind of fit in there.
Yeah. Well, I remember scrolling through Twitter back before I left it. And, when it was like a hellscape, and they'd be like, the left wants to demonize you for being a man. And I'm like, they would sort of cherry pick things, and it would just drive people further into being isolated.
Yeah. And while patriarchy is not secluded to white supremacy and white nationalism, it is definitely connected to it. It's like patriarchy is in a lot of different cultures, but
Right.
it is definitely a part of the white nationalist movement. So everywhere that's saying, it's a crime to be a man, are also the ones saying it's not a crime to be white. White lives matter.
Right. Like, why can't I say white lives matter? Why is that a crime? It looks like they want to demonize you for being white.
Right.
And it's just like this little voice just in the back of these guys' heads that's like, yeah, I guess I got to go where I'm accepted and loved.
Except sometimes they're not accepting that love in the first place, and they're pushing it away for whatever reasons they have, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what I wanted to get to. Well, initially what I wanted to do in this segment was to start with the specific LDS white nationalists that we have known of in the last decade and a half. But then kind of the further I went in, the more I was like, I can't really explain this until we explain the white nationalist movement in the Pacific West, Southwest, Northwest of this country, because it's vast. And we kind of have to look at why that's there. Like, why did that happen?
Yeah.
Specifically. And it's not because the saints came in. I'm just going to preface that, start this all off by saying white nationalism didn't come specifically because of the Latter-day Saints being there, but they definitely blended very
It goes nice together,
easily.
like olive oil and vinegar with a piece of bread.
Sure.
Yeah.
If bread is the suffering of the masses, yes. And the wealth growing in the handful of a few. So white nationalism may not be paraded in name in the Latter-day Saints sermons or, in their churches in the year 2025 or even in the year 1970, but it is the foundation of the entire church. Let's just be completely clear here. I don't feel like we need to mince words on this, because the base of it, the backbone of the entire Book of Mormon story, revolves around white people coming and destroying evil, dark-skinned people at the behest of Midwestern loving Jesus, Hillary, Christ. So we've spoken about Operation Underground Railroad, and though they don't have any immediate tiable links to the modern nationalist movements, they operate, no pun intended, very similarly, because they have a lot of the same ideology at the end of the day. This is to say, they love LARPing as soldiers. They love it. They love doing raids. They love shooting at targets and then doing a little roll on the ground and then stabbing a thing with a bayonet and then somersault.
Right. Like, who are those guys with the blue shirt tucked into the khakis that are always in a U-Haul for some reason?
Oh, don't you worry. They're right into this story, Amber.
Oh, right. But
they're called the Patriot Front.
Yes, I've seen their drills, and they want to be soldiers so bad. And I'm like, join boot camp. Like, they're accepting. They'll give you college money. Like, you could get a house with these people. But they'd be serving with people that are like Mexican and black.
It's so weird to say, but I feel like they would become more almost empathetic to different kinds of people if they went into the army, which is an insane statement to me.
Right, because the army has like all American citizens, and that is not only white people.
Yes.
So they have to be serving alongside
people of different religions and backgrounds and different ideas.
And they can't have that. So they got to get them and their white boys in their little khaki pants and roll around on the ground.
Yeah. And that's not to say that there aren't veterans in these groups, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them want to be, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But just to have the title of it, and I think that the LARPing part of it serves this like part of their lizard brain. I don't know. I love LARPing. Obviously, I cosplay all the time, but mine are usually like, I can fly and
You're a princess.
My lover is a dragon man.
Right. I cosplay as a confident woman. It works.
I mean, don't we all? We're all just playing, aren't we?
Right.
So, yeah, they have this really huge element of this. For example, the founder of a sect of the 3%ers, you've probably heard of the 3%ers, if for nothing else, January 6th, but they are one of the many nationalist groups that have really exploded since, weirdly, I don't know, something happened in 2015, 2016, and they really, something really riled them up.
Latched on, yeah.
Don't know what it was. So you may have heard of them before, but one of their branches is run by a fellow by the name of Scott Seddon, who touts himself as a vet of Operation Desert Storm, when in fact, he never saw combat. He did join the reserves for a time, never went to a war zone, and is more akin to a carnival barker, which is a guy who has gone from job to job his whole life. He was literally an erotica cover model. He was a DJ. He's from Long Island. And at one point during the Obama administration, he already had very far-right kind of extremist ideas. And when Obama came in, he was like, no one's listening to me and my thoughts, and I'm mad about it.
Oh, it's one of those, like, if you had this opinion in the 1950s, you'd be considered normal, and now you're far right. I'm like, no one is saying you can't go have a family.
Right.
And a wife.
Yeah, it's the
maybe attack the billionaires that are taking jobs away from you.
Well, they're the ones telling you to say that. I mean, Elon Musk has literally tweeted that before. I left the Democratic Party because they went too extreme, and it's like, buddy. No. What are you talking about? That is insane. So he was definitely somebody who already was prone to these ideas. And he found this at the end of the Obama era, kind of found this market, we'll say. He did
Grifter?
Yes.
A lot of them are grifters.
Yes. And so that is to say, he touted himself as this war veteran who saw all of these things, and he developed this branch of the bigger 3%ers, and they kind of grew during the first Trump administration. And as they call themselves the AP3ers, and they sort of straddle this strange world. Thank you to ProPublica for covering this, by the way. I'm getting a lot of my information from this episode from the amazing journalism at ProPublica. And they describe a really interesting microcosm that we see in these worlds that is straddling both sides of something, where they are extremists. They are going out, threatening people, being menacing at pride festivals, at BLM protests, stuff like that. But they're also organizing family. They're focusing on family outings and like doing like activities with your family, and then even sometimes like we'll throw in kind of charity work stuff at the same time. So when you hear that kind of stuff mixed together, it may not be surprising that this would entice certain sects of the LDS church. That's all their favorite stuff.
Family.
They love being discriminatory. They love family. They love ice cream cones.
Which, by the way, I love family, but I look at children as like little adults that need training and love and care. I don't look at family as like, oh, this is my lord and
your
castle,
purse.
my purse, my object that I get to run around and boss.
Yeah, same. And also the idea of what is allowed to be a family is very stringent in these groups. So it's not like, they're not like everybody's family. They mean a very specific kind of family, one that you may see on propaganda from the 30s or 40s, you know what I mean? So they are straddling these kind of two worlds, which is something that happens a lot with LDS because they have these really dark facets of the church, but they also want to portray this like squeaky clean, everybody's on the 4th of July eating a hot dog and they're swinging on the swings and everyone's happy.
Right, but you peel back their brain and it's like guns, violence, blood, gotta kill, gotta kill.
Yes, and also only white people. Those are the good ones. Yeah, so this is a little clip from a ProPublica report about this guy.
Under Seddon, AP3 was both an armed right-wing resistance group and something akin to a Rotary Club. Camaraderie was an important draw as an ideology. AP3 members patrolled city streets with AR-15-style rifles and baseball bats during Black Lives Matter protests. They practiced attacking dummies with knives. They also taught each other how to save money on groceries through gardening and organized seminars where they wrote reports on each constitutional amendment. One member said the group dispatched trucks filled with clothes and furniture to his family after a wildfire destroyed their house. AP3 had its own monthly magazine with militia news on the front page and word games for kids on the back.
But the words are like
Kill.
eugenics.
Eugenics.
So if that sounds familiar, it sounds familiar to me. It sounds a lot like LDS doomsday prepper communities where they're extreme in this one way, but they're also like, but let's also learn how to can tomatoes.
Right, and that's the thing that sucks is because I want to learn how to can tomatoes.
Right.
I even got in the canning community a little bit, and then I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about, the white people?
There's so many now, especially with social media, especially places like TikTok, it is so easy to accidentally find yourself in the middle of this community because they are meshing all of these things together in a way, kind of trying to trick you into going in, even if sometimes maybe they're not making this plot of like, we must trick the liberals into becoming a part of our community. They're by nature deceptive because their background ideology is very ugly. It's like stuff you couldn't even say on the internet. So they kind of have to trick you to get you on their side because they can't say what they actually think, even if they wanted to, because they would literally be banned from the websites.
Well, I don't know if they'd be banned because I've seen people say outrageous stuff.
They'd at least get a strike one time and they'd go, no,
freedom of speech.
So I'm not saying I find it appealing, but it makes sense to me in a way. It feels like it probably gives people a sense of purpose. And that to me also connects very deeply with why something like an LDS church would cross-reference into this world, because when you're like bred into the LDS lifestyle, you are told this grandiose idea of yourself, of the earth, of your afterlife. It's this like magical thing. And so you kind of are going to lean towards delusional senses of purpose.
That's why all the propaganda posters are cartoons or drawn or AI. It's so hard to find like this real family. Or they really like that one Dutch woman.
Which one?
The one who's like, we've got to have Dutch for Dutch people or whatever. And she's like she did all the markets, but she's a very beautiful woman. But this was before she had a husband and kids. And then after she started having kids, like it's bye-bye time. But they loved her when she was single, when it was like, here's this beautiful blonde.
I don't know who that is, but
I forget her name.
But like, yeah, like she was, I'm imagining a pretty perfect propaganda piece.
Yes.
And she kind of played into that.
Everything was perfect. Yes.
Yeah. And, we know this so well, especially if you listen to the show, but even if you're just online, trad wife stuff is an illusion. That's not how a trad wife actually would look. You also wouldn't know what she was talking about because she wouldn't be allowed on the internet.
No, they'd have a mustache and they'd have biceps from lifting barrels of hay. Like they're not wearing a white flowing dress. You'd get cow shit on it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And, no hate to them, but, they're flapping in the wind down there. Their bodies are destroyed as they have all these children. So this is all set into this idea. We have this suggestion of this incredible life you could have out in the forest. We have the LDS indoctrination of like, your world is magical and you're going to a special fancy place afterwards if you do this and this and this. And then you have all of this social media propaganda now too. So that's like this whole other element that we're having to deal with. So these groups give these people a purpose, right? As long as you follow a strict set of guidelines and fear others at all costs. That is very important. Reading through the coverage of these different organized crimes and whatever you want to call them, they're white nationalist sleeper cell things, I have to wonder, for many of these guys, if the idea of stopping this quote unquote invasion, because they're all obsessed with the border, they're all obsessed with migrants, they're all obsessed with people, infiltrating their lands or whatever. Like people are all dying to get to northern Idaho, everybody's dying to get up there. I'd almost wonder if this idea, it's like the excitement of thinking you have a task instead of actually fearing migrants at all. And it doesn't really make a difference, but it's something I've been pondering reading all of this because it seems like these guys are more excited about the idea of a job that feels important than actually feeling genuine fear about people taking their lands. Does that make sense?
That makes sense because there's also like, wasn't the leader of the Proud Boys like from Cuba or something?
I mean, yeah, and that guy's a moron. That guy sucks. But yes, for sure.
They want a job. They want a task. They want to feel like they're important and wanted and needed. Everybody wants that. That's like a hierarchy of needs.
For sure.
But can we do it without hating other people?
Right. And to your point, that Proud Boys guy, even if they don't call themselves openly white nationalists, most of the guys in there kind of like lean white nationalists at the very least.
Yeah.
And you're like, why is this guy running this? And you're like, well, maybe it just makes him feel like safe or like important. And special.
Also, a lot of those guys have their girlfriends and wives are women of color.
Yeah, which is that is such a strange phenomenon because we see that a lot in white nationalist groups. And there's got to be like a psychology discussion about that
because
somewhere.
they're doing something a little naughty.
I think that they're somehow objectifying their spouse, but also being like, see, I can't be, but I am. I don't understand that. I would love to see a psychologist break that down.
Write in someplaceunderneath@gmail.com. But also, I think you're right. The underlying thing is they want a job and a purpose.
Yeah. And that I can kind of get. Most of the other stuff makes me pretty angry. But in the previous episode, we mentioned a one Mr. Wes Rowley, rest in piss, honestly, a 20-year-old extremist who, according to his friends, was an edgelord who loved Trump and swastikas and who also ambushed a group of firefighters trying to put out the fire he started, killing 2 of them. This took place just a few weeks before we recorded this episode in 2025, and it took place in an area of Idaho called Coeur d'Alene. And while there still seems to be few answers as to why this little bitch took this road, this pathway that is just pointless in every single way, Coeur d'Alene, as well as Idaho, the state, are not strangers to extreme right-wing violence. In fact, you could say they are often its home base. What the question became for this series is, how does that connect to the LDS Church, if at all? It does, by the way. Oh. But why and how did this all end up being here? And how does it intersect with the LDS Church? So let's just talk about that for a bit. Wes Rowley's family isn't LDS from the initial, look into their
Google search.
If you go into their personal profiles, I try to find like context clues through. A lot of times I find people's denomination through funeral, like obituaries, them being mentioned in one of their elders. You know how like when people have obituaries, they'll say like with grandson da 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 and daughter da 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 da. Sometimes that's how I figure out what people are in the church if they don't openly say it.
That's smart.
But I couldn't find anything specifically in his family. But his family, both mother and father, they have moved around between all the states in the Mormon belt. So there's at least a large percent of a chance that he comes from Mormon blood. But that's not why I'm bringing him up. And it doesn't really mean much here. His family on both sides, they were divorced. Both his mom and his dad are right wing, though in that kind of scary biker tattooed kind of way, which we mentioned before, which I say, hey, stay out of my culture. Just kidding, guys. I just meant the tattoos and stuff.
Yeah, tattoos are now kind of right-wingy.
I mean, they've always been, but they don't get to claim those. This has always been a rebellious thing for different kinds of culture.
Well, they're rebelling against the modern world, Natalie.
Oh, I know. They're really cool. Wow. They're pretty awesome. So the biker gang kind of idea is enmeshed also in this Idaho world. We talked about that briefly before on the previous episode, that the sort of clean-cut, scary, all-white clothes racist and the biker with the patches and stuff, the SS patch and stuff, kind of touch tips in Idaho. So his family was more on the biker side of it, and his dad literally has an 88 tattoo on his knuckles. Like,
what?
I don't see a lot of people reporting on this, but it seems like it should be important to mention that his dad has a Nazi tattoo and wears a Confederate flag on his biker jacket.
There are so many of these pop-up crimes happening that just sort of go away. And this is so interesting because you're right, no one's talking about it.
No, I have seen articles breaking down what the boy, like, I saw articles speaking to his friends and talked about what he liked, which is important, I think, in the aftermath, but not really being like, his dad is like an open Nazi. I guess that doesn't matter. They're kind of like acting like he's also a victim in all of this. And I'm like, is he, though? Is he?
Right. Well, who controls the media, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah. So I bring this all up to say this is not uncommon in this neck of the woods. The mentality in white nationalist groups tends towards sometimes like supporting first responders. But really, the thing that they all have in common at the end of the day is a drive to violence and feeling oppressed by everything. So we'll never know what this little dumbass thought he was doing by shooting firefighters. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what a loser. But
yeah, go TP somebody's house like a normal teenager.
Yeah, it's just such a fucking loser. It's loser behavior, but who cares because he's dead. But we'll never know if that was because he was like trying to like please his father, or if he was leaning into the mentality. He was somebody who thought swastikas and Nazi stuff was cool in high school. That was said by the people that were interviewed later on. But regardless of what he was doing, Idaho has been the nucleus for violent racist extremism since at least the 1970s, but really since the 19th century even formed.
That's crazy, because when you say Idaho, I'm always like, Idaho, and I think it's a joke, and I think it's a silly joke, and that's the potato state, and I like kind of forget about it. I don't think I've been to Idaho.
I mean, same.
I'm sure it's lovely, but what?
I don't think I've ever been there either. It's kind of out of the way of a lot of states.
Like,
it's like way up there.
Yeah, way up there. Why are Nazis coming out of the Idaho state?
Yeah, and that is also something that I had questions about because, growing up, all you ever hear is potatoes. Potatoes are there. That's where the potatoes come from. And I didn't really connect it to white supremacy until the last 5 years or so when we started doing this work. And it's weird to me. So this is like why I had to look into it before we talked about the LDS segments of this world. So the 1970s is when we really connected to that, but it was happening, very racist laws and stuff are being put into place basically as Idaho is being formed as a state. So the Mormons themselves have had a tumultuous and possessive relationship with Idaho since before it became a state as well. If you don't know where that sits on the map, it's literally north of Utah, exactly above it. So after the establishment of Utah and Salt Lake City, which of course was Brigham Young, he took the leftover Mormons after Joseph Smith was shot. They all went over. He founded what he thought was going to be the state of Deseret. It turned into Utah, but this is where they founded Salt Lake City. And he's a real go-getter. And so he said to some of the first people who came over with him, why don't you go up north and go see what you find up there, and let's get some more territories.
Yeah, scout it out for me.
Yeah, so very shortly after he began to put Salt Lake City together, he sent some of the Mormons up northward. In fact, one of the first areas claimed by white colonizers in that area was the Mormons in the 1860s, which Brigham named the territory Franklin after one of his core members, which is still a city today in southern Idaho. Franklin, Idaho is named after one of the first quorum of the 12. Yeah, that's still a city today. Here is a little blurb about how the church kind of moved into Idaho.
By 1880, Idaho boasted a population of 32,610. In the southern section of the territory, many settlers were followers of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who had been dispatched from Salt Lake City to found new colonies. Increasingly, Idaho territories divided between an LDS-dominated South and an anti-LDS-dominated North and an anti-LDS North. In the mid-1880s, anti-LDS Republicans used widespread public antipathy towards the practice of polygamy to pass legislation denying the predominantly Democratic Latter-day Saint vote.
Obviously, the Republican and Democrat thing, that didn't mean the same thing as it does now.
It's like a muddy, weird history.
Yeah. But that is to say, they moved into what became Idaho. And it's so confusing to say this because we're talking about a time when it wasn't states yet. And so I have to say, like, what will once become Idaho then was a territory.
Right.
But where Idaho is now the Saints basically founded, well, they didn't found it. They colonized it first. And then the northern part was different white people who came in and they clashed, right? But eventually Mormonism just maintained their stronghold and then kind of, branched out throughout the state of Idaho, although the southern part is much more dense with it still. But it was given, basically Idaho was given statehood in 1890 and has maintained Mormonism pretty heavily there since.
Yeah.
It's hard not to connect those facts to what is happening there now in Idaho. To this day, LDS and evangelical Protestant beliefs battle for the top space in religious denominations every year in that state. They are generally always neck and neck, most of the time averaging about 20% of the population each. So between everyone who lives in Idaho, around 20% are LDS and then another 20% are evangelical Protestant. So that's 40% of the whole state. And they have, even though they believe some different things, they have a lot of the same the worst beliefs they have the same. They believe in the same worst things, technically.
Oh, like women, you better shut up?
Yeah, just very patriarchal, very, far-right stuff. So they enjoy it. Both of them love white supremacy, or at least they benefit from it. If they say they don't love it, they benefit greatly from it. Where that little guy who just did the terrorism, he did a whole terrorism by himself in Coeur d'Alene. That is higher up. So that's like sort of northern Idaho. And it is very, very familiar with violent extremism. Though the blandly named Aryan Nation has roots starting in the 50s and 60s and sort of out on the West Coast, the headquarters were moved to Hayden Lake, Idaho, which is a suburb of Coeur d'Alene in 1973. By an asshat named Richard Gert Butler. Gert. So that is the place where that kid just did the domestic terrorism is this same city, essentially, as where the Aryan headquarters were for decades.
Really?
Yes. And it's not that it's gone now, but we'll talk about what happened here. So this guy, Richard Butler, he took these really cool ideas from this thing called the Church of Jesus Christ Christian. It's not to be confused with the Latter-day Saints. Just sounds exactly the same. But they are more openly racist, whereas the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints tries to pretend they're not and always tried to pretend they weren't. This one was like, nah, we are. And so this guy, Richard Butler, took all of this idea from this church and created what he called the Aryan Nation. And then he was like, we're getting out of California. We're going to this other cool spot called Idaho. And so he took all these people with him. And wow, this is not all because of this loser and his dusty followers. But Butler and Aryan Nation group that he was with, they definitely greatly contributed to all that would occur there in the aftermath. And that happened since well before we were born, right? So this was, again, early 70s when this all started with him. But again, he didn't start the idea of racism in Idaho, and he didn't cause everything afterwards. He was just a huge issue and caused a lot of what let's call ripple effects.
Poster child, if you will.
Yeah, he definitely was a poster child and more. I don't want to give too much information because I don't want to get things wrong. But here is an Idaho journalist named Jess Westhoff who explains why he perhaps took his enclave from California to Idaho in the early 1970s.
Butler saw our state as fertile ground to develop a hub for white supremacy. Capitalizing on the region's lack of racial diversity, history of Confederate sympathies, and continuing wave of white flight from the South and urban areas, Butler weaved hateful ideology into a distorted version of Christianity to unite far-right extremists.
Yeah, and there's a lot of history to go into about this area, not just Idaho, but Washington, Oregon, where they had already developed these very anti-Chinese laws in the 1920s. Essentially, it's just like, because the politics of the time encouraged racism, all the racists started to conglomerate there, if that makes sense. It just was sort of like happenstance almost, but it's partly why this guy moved to Idaho because he knew that there was a lot of sympathy for racism
Right.
and also mostly white people there.
So it's like me being an artist in Louisiana being like, I got to move to New York. That's where the artist hub is. He was just like, oh, I'm a major racist. I got to move to
racist
Idaho.
is art.
Yeah, racism is art.
Racism is art.
Right. And hate speech is my paintbrush.
Yes. So
Or guns are my paintbrush.
Yes.
I don't know.
So while that is happening, this is not in relation to the Book of Mormon. It's not in relation to the saints. But even though he wasn't using Book of Mormon directly, this message would reach a fair number of saints who already, believed exactly what the book told them, which was that two holy descendant groups of God came to America and the white ones and the dark ones fought. And guess which ones are the good guys in that story? So their book is saying that the white people are the good guys and the black people and the dark people are the bad guys. That is what their fucking book says.
And if you're a person of darker skin and you stop sinning, your skin turns lighter.
Yes, quite literally it says that. And I feel like we just need to keep hammering that home to just remind people that that is in the base doctrine of the Book of Mormon. And so even though this guy, this butler man, the Gert Butler, wasn't using Book of Mormon to call people in, he was saying the same shit. And so the people who were LDS were already right there, ready to go. So the ones who felt, disenfranchised even in their own church were just sort of like, well, this guy's making a lot of sense, and he's right there. And you can kind of just go hang out with him anytime you want. So that's to say, while Butler didn't come for the Saints, maybe he thrived inside the Saints. Coeur d'Alene is closer, again, to the northern end of Idaho, which was first colonized by fur trappers and then settled during the gold rush of the late 1800s. But over the 20th century, the Latter-day Saints made their way north and populated northern Idaho also. So a lot of the most disenfranchised Mormons in the 20th century too, especially, they may have moved north because there are definitely regular schmegular, boring Latter-day Saints who live in that area. But for those who don't think the church focuses enough on the roots of the church, they're in there and they're like, we're not really talking about the things I want to talk about in this religion that are happening. There's this whole movement right there for them in northern Idaho. It's almost like the further you trickle out of Salt Lake City, the strains of Mormonism become more intense, more willing to go to the ends of the rationality perspective. And to the south, we talked about what was happening with Ken Krogh and Sanpete County and his posse trying to make these polygamous apocalypse McMansions down there. And then we have this to the north. We have these angry, mediocre fundamentalists who want to return to hunter-gatherer and want to rape and pillage for white Christ. So it's like we have sort of the more safe Latter-day Saints in the city area. And then as it trickles outward, it's like the real Wild West a little bit.
Yeah.
But the Wild West, I guess, is mostly just wanting to have sex with your daughter and
no laws.
be pale. So the KKK feeling comfortable there by the 1920s and the Aryan Nation with their stupid little swastikas everywhere in the forest of Idaho by the 70s made it something of a safe space for frightened racists. This is also a long-established far-right belief system throughout Idaho. We have to also, I want to acknowledge there are, of course, great people who live in Idaho who would want to defend the better parts of it. But the far-right wing beliefs dominate the voting booths and the laws that are set up there. They are extremely anti-choice, anti-vax. They want all of their freedoms, if you will. And it's been that way for generations, as long as freedoms for white people. But that is to this day, 65% are Republican. Another 20 are independent, but lean right. So, I mean, this is mostly far right in Idaho. And we don't talk about that a lot.
No.
But they cause a lot of problems.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Does California give money to Idaho?
Probably. We'll see.
I
don't
know it gives
know.
it to Mississippi, and I know people in my family are like, we hate California. We want to secede. And I'm like, okay.
I mean, good luck, I guess.
Go for it. Have your own state. I don't care.
Enjoy yourselves. See how that goes. So, yeah, we'll see how everybody feels with this big, beautiful bill shit. See how that goes for everybody.
Yeah, it's weird because it's you want to be anti-law and all of this Republican far right. I'm sort of whatever, go live where you want to live, you know? But then they get mad at me.
Yes.
Living my life. And
Yes.
like I'm putting in their face somehow.
Yeah. I'm sure there are homesteaders and preppers out there and stuff who aren't trying to like change laws and cause terrorism.
yeah.
But there are a lot of them who don't just want to live their forest life and let
No,
their
they
kids
wanna-
frolics. They want to control what you do.
Yeah, they want to drive on the road that our taxpayer built. They want to go to the hospital that our taxpayer built. But then,
They're like, but not my taxes.
but not my taxes.
Yep. Pretty much. It's very childish, really, when you
It's
think
very
about it.
childish. These are like little kids playing war in the woods.
I don't mean to get all internet therapy speak, but it sounds like they have a lot of unresolved trauma.
Well, these kind of groups, it's a lot of like just trauma being passed down and passed down.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
I have some far-right people that I know, and then I ask them, like, what was your grandma like? And they're like, yeah, she got beaten up a lot. I'm like, what was your grandpa like? He got beat up a lot. Like, everybody got beat up to an inch of death.
Yeah, it's true.
And other cultures do that too, I'm sure, but like it's very prominent in this. And I know a lot of like edgelords in the comedy community that are like, but it's freedom of speech, they should say what they want. I'm like, you're bisexual. Good luck. Good fucking luck going over there. Like you have a 2-parent home in the suburbs. You don't know what you're talking about.
That's so true.
Like last time I went home, I saw Hitler on the TV. Get the fuck out of here. Go down there and say you're bisexual.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're completely right. Yes, because it's like that unresolved trauma shit that they deal with. And it's not an excuse that your parents got beat or whatever. It's not. But it's an understanding of maybe how it led to this.
Because it's control. Everything's control.
The unresolved trauma seems to make them want to control everything around them. Like if I make sure everybody's doing what I want, things
Right.
I'll feel I can go to sleep.
Because when things aren't controlled, daddy gets drunk and rapes me.
Yeah, maybe. You know, we're just spitballing.
We're just spitballing.
Throwing spaghetti at the wall. But yeah, so we we briefly mentioned Ruby Ridge also, and while many of you may know of or at least heard the name Ruby Ridge before, let's just briefly talk about that. The incident at Ruby Ridge was not only based around white nationalism, but it inspired others to implement domestic terrorism, including the bombing by Timothy McVeigh.
I saw a documentary on Ruby Ridge. I didn't like anybody in that scenario.
No,
To be honest, even the cops.
Well,
I was
that's
like,
the
I don't like
thing.
you guys either.
That is the problem with these kind of stories, because very quickly, a synopsis is Randy and Vicky Weaver, who are at the center of the incident at Ruby Ridge, weren't LDS, but they were some variation of extreme doomsday preppers who moved to just north of Coeur d'Alene, essentially to isolate their family and to prepare for the end. They were preparing for the end times. Without having to go deep into the story, what begins as sort of this Hatfield and McCoy argument between extreme prepper families in this area evolves into or kind of devolves into the FBI investigating the area. And ultimately that led to a standoff that led to deaths. Similar to how the Waco catastrophe was investigating people who were arguably doing fucked up things became folk heroes to some people because they were, in a sense, martyred by the government mishandling it.
Right. Oh, yeah. There's always these right-wing, far-right memes of like the Waco or the Ruby Ridge. And because, you know, they have the mother that was just shot.
Yes.
And they said, try to live off the land, they said, but the government won't let you.
Yeah. And it sucks because to an extent, they're not wrong
Yeah.
in that the things that they were doing a standoff for it was not handled accurately or well.
No.
And so the government, including with Waco, looks like fucking loser assholes, even though I fervently disagree with what was happening in Ruby Ridge, primarily because he was, like most people in that area, interacting with the Aryan Nation, going to meetings, talking about things. Maybe he wasn't like the leader of one of these gangs, but the family was involved with really scary extremist groups. That's not why the FBI came to investigate them, and that's a big problem. But the government fucked up. Then they get to be kind of like the way Joseph Smith got martyred. These people become these folk heroes to extremists, essentially. So Ruby Ridge is just a little bit north of Coeur d'Alene and it's very close to where the Aryan Nation headquarters were, essentially.
I keep imagining headquarters like a bank. But like,
No, it's just a big building with literally a roof-sized swastika on the top of it. So,
oh, okay.
yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, that's it. Because I was picturing like the headquarters, like like glass walls and like, you know, a cute secretary with glasses, and it's just.
It's like it looked. You can look it up. It looked more like a farmhouse with a giant swastika on it.
All right.
Yeah, but they had like a playground and they had some infrastructure, but it was mostly just about being mad, you know.
Yeah.
But they were going strong. So they set up shop there in the early 70s, and they were there completely functioning until the year 2000, not because they got shut down by the government, but because money talks in this country, and the SPLC successfully sent them into bankruptcy through lawsuits because of the horrible shit they were doing. So even though they were able to basically bulldoze their little enclave, it didn't take away white nationalism from the area. It didn't like cleanse the land. They dismembered the little group, but all of the white nationalists were still there. They still lived in the area. There were still all of the sympathizers in the area. And it's almost like the folk hero aspect of Ruby Ridge had pushed people to remember it. So even though they had done this, Ruby Ridge was in the 90s, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty League Center, if people don't know what that is, they got the Aryan Nation headquarters demolished. But because of Ruby Ridge, it kind of awoke like a little bit more fervor into the area, and that idea of being like, fuck this government, fuck this. We're all gonna come up here. I want to live up here, and we're gonna take charge, and we're gonna do this. And I also feel insecure about myself, and I don't like black people either. So it kind of drew attention to this whole area, which kind of caused like a little bump in the interest in the early 2000s in a weird way. So it is, and it was at the time and still is now, a safe space for racists who want to own women and children as property and hate everyone, and nobody's going to tell me what to do when I go up there. Nobody. It's my space. I'm going to do it. I'm going to kiss my daughter, and I'm going to shoot people.
Isn't there like a prominent men's rights activist who started this whole thing because his mom wanted to make him take his medicine? He's like, Mommy can't make me take my medicine. Full-grown man, by the way.
I would love to know. I'm sure.
I have his name's on the tip of my tongue. Whatever. Let's keep going.
Somebody will write it in.
Yeah.
And so it never fully went away. But it got a brand new fire under its butt at the start of the 2016 election cycle. Daddy was coming home. Daddy's coming in the office. And he said, you can have all of your worst thoughts and inclinations validated.
Yay.
He said, yes, and there was a younger generation of LDS returned missionaries and young people going to college who were ripe for the picking in this temperature. And pickings they did as the LDS Church began to reap what it has sown for so many generations. Because they kind of like operated just being like this thing, you know, like, oh, this weird church that's collecting billions of dollars, but nobody's really paying attention. But then as 2016 hit and people started celebrating patriarchy and dehumanization and tribalism and racism, that's when the rubber kind of hits the road for the saints, because are you prepared to stand on all 10 toes with what your book says? Because there's a big sect of your church that apparently wants you to do that. Or are you going to go like, oh, no, we talked to our prophet and God said, my bad. We're just these little sweet teetotaling dorks now. Don't worry about the other stuff we did. And they were kind of at a crossroads. And it seems like they couldn't make a choice. And so I think that's partly why we are seeing these really radicalized groups come out of the church right now. Because the church is not taking a very strong stance one way or the other. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And they're trying to be like, you could be a little racist.
Yeah, but they want their donation dollars. But there's some people in the church that are like, we don't like these extremist groups. And they're just like, yeah, we want your donation dollars too.
Yeah. And they are kicking out people who try to defend like gay people. They have excommunicated multiple therapists who are trying to, you know, advocate for LGBTQ communities, but they're not excommunicating people like Ken Krogh or like Tom Harrison, who are proposing these really extreme, radical, violent, scary, kind of polygamous sort of white nationalist ideas, these eugenic ideas almost. So we kind of know where they're standing, but they're still trying to play both sides, and it's not actually working out very well for them. I mean, they still have $1 billion, but they're losing members a lot. And this has caused like a pretty decent upheaval in the church because, you know, there are the segments of the church that are really interested in the idea of the shit I think is evil. There are all of these extremist groups all around them who have lived here and have been waiting for the moments to approach these young, super getting red-pilled as hell men. And there are a lot of takers. And not just the groups who are based in Utah, because there are a bunch in Idaho and Utah, but there are groups in other states who are also eyeballing Utah and Idaho as the place they're going to collect all of their soldiers, including places like Texas, like you mentioned, Patriot Front.
Oh, our favorite people.
Our favorite people. They have been deeply focused on recruiting Mormons. They have spent a lot of energy and time on doing it. They've been so invested in that area that they have done things like flooded the campuses of both BYU and BYU Idaho, as well as University of Utah, with flyers, recruitment offerings, propaganda.
God, we used to have like Klan members come on our college.
What did they do?
They weren't in the hoodies, but because we had a free speech alley, and they would just be like, join our cult. Or no, they didn't say cult. They said, join us, join us. They just looked like regular guys. And then they were like very angry, but they would yell. And then like right next to them, there would be like queer people that would say, come join us.
Did they start, like they weren't violent?
I remember them, like they had signs and they would just be like, everybody's going to hell. And I'd be like, why would I join you? Like, what's going, like you're making it very difficult for me. I'm going to the gay booth.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it is weird in those circles. It doesn't seem like that's an effective, like, so are you trying to get people or you just want to make people upset? Because if you just want to make people upset, that's kind of working.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to get members, that's not a good method.
I mean, they'll get the straight white guys that didn't have a girlfriend. I'm sure if they did that now, they would join. But at the time, it was a little, the internet was here, but it wasn't as much as it is, like as culty as it is.
Do you remember if they were college age or they were older?
They were older. It's like old men.
So creepy.
Yeah, just old angry men. Everybody's going to hell. Ugh. It gets to the point with those kind of people that I don't even give them the anger they seek because they see anger as like still attention.
Oh, they are the loneliest human beings on earth for sure.
Imagine having a sign that says everyone's going to hell. Like imagine that.
No, I won't.
No, I won't.
Refuse. You think I want that many people approaching me on the street? I don't want to talk to all those strangers. God, that sounds like awful. Like I don't want to engage with a bunch of people I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I think that comes from loneliness. And all those other things.
Yeah, they just had like a big rebel flag.
Is that how you could figure out they were the Klan?
They didn't say we are the Klan, but it was the big rebel flag. Everybody's going to hell. Very angry older men, and then like
you got to jump to the conclusion. You got to draw the conclusion.
It's Louisiana, yeah, of course.
I love that you called them the hoodies, like they're just sweatshirts with big pointy hoods they put on. Yeah, so that's what Patriot Front has been doing at these schools, and it's a different style, but the same thing, essentially, that you saw on your campus. And
they're cool now.
It's so crazy to think. You had something called Freedom Alley?
Yeah, Freedom Alley.
Freedom of Speech Alley? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. That's so interesting.
Crazy now that I think about it, because it was everybody, like, if you had any kind of opinion, it was like this one alley. And then there were all these, like, little tiny abortion crosses on the lawn. I forgot about that, man. That
shit sucks because it's a little bit of it's a both sides thing. Like, well, some people think you should be Nazis and some people think that that's bad. It's just two different opinions. It's kind of like validating those thoughts a little bit.
I guess they want me dead, but get them to speak.
Yeah.
Then I guess I should get a big billboard that was like, you all go to hell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's my freedom of speech? What if, and I don't believe this because I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But what if, like, oh, you're into freedom of speech. What if I, like, got a big sign that says, I'm going to fucking kill all of you. I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to go after your families. Would you call that freedom of speech?
But the issue with those kind of dudes is they know the exact line
to stop.
before it's a crime.
Because they don't say, I'm going to kill you. They say, you're going to hell.
Yes. They'll say things that are obviously threatening and menacing to you, but they know legally it's the same thing that people do on the internet all the time.
And if I had a sign that said, straight white men go to hell, they would pick that up and put that on their side and use it as propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
They know what they're doing.
They would just put it and be like, see?
Yeah.
Feminist cunts.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
There's snarkiness there.
If they have one thing, it's a hobby in harassing and annoying everyone. They are very talented at it.
My brain can't come up with that because it was all over Twitter of just like the harassing and annoying. And I was like, yeah, I'll get him back. But my brain doesn't go there. Even I'm a comic, but I'm a comedian and it's like let's all have a great time. I want to make you laugh. I believe we have more in common than the people that own us, the billionaires that do, right? But if you spend your whole day hours and hours a day thinking, how am I going to get them back? How am I going to sweep this up? How am I going to fuck them over? How am I going to make them mad?
Yeah. I mean, focus fully on not making their lives better.
No, I want to make your life worse.
Your life worse because my life sucks and I'm never going to be mad at the guy who is making my life the worst.
Never.
I'm going to be mad at you.
Because you look different than me.
Yeah, and you seem like you're happy. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Probably laughing in their face is the best way to get back at them.
It is, but you have to be careful because they are violent and scary.
Wow.
The best thing you can do is try to disengage as much as possible, but sometimes you do have to cross paths with them. And then in that case, don't let them get you mad. Like that's just the best thing you can do is not let them.
Right.
Like they will hate it if you're not angry and upset.
God, there's like one specific person I know that's really big on freedom of speech, but he is bisexual. And I'm like, my man, they don't like you. Like, I get it. I'm on your wavelength. I want everyone to say whatever they want, but you seem to think that they're going to accept you. They will not.
I don't know who you're referencing, but there are those people like Milo Yiannopoulos and like Peter Thiel who are just so sociopathic. They can compartmentalize their gayness and like don't care about her. Like they're like, I'll still be a piece of shit. I just like to put my penis in a butt.
And in fact, them being gay is almost better for them because it's like, well, I guess you're being homophobic if you disagree with them. And like, well, look how intolerant they are and like accepting a gay person. Like it all works to their advantage.
Yeah.
But again, I don't sit and think about pissing people off all day.
No.
I think about how can we all be better and how can I better my life?
Well, you're stupid. And that's all I have to say about that.
All right.
No, yeah, the idea of look at the tolerant left again. And like, I actually think that's a really stupid statement to make in the first place because I actually wouldn't say that the left is tolerant.
No.
I think that the left is accepting of people, but I actually don't think that they like to tolerate a lot. And that's a positive. I actually think calling people the tolerant left is not what you think it is. Because that's saying, oh, I'm tolerating racism. I'm tolerating.
Right. Oh, it's something they just made up.
Yeah,
it's just
stupid.
all made up. Again, it's like snarky, sneaky.
Oh, yeah, it's stupid. It's just fucking catchphrases and shit. But anyway, we have these guys who are red-pilled, getting confused about who they are. There are these groups reaching out to them. I think we all know that. We see it a lot online. We think I think more about it with like the Andrew Tates and stuff like that. But these extremist groups are also doing the same thing and actually probably are being more successful at reaching young men who are already in a like right-wing religion, right? So there might be just like regular bro-y kind of kids who would fall into the Andrew Tate world. But these kind of groups are really primed to manipulate religious men.
Man, this is so scary as somebody that wants to go back to church because I'm just like, I don't want to be around this.
I think I'm
gotta
certain
find the right spot.
we know a handful of people who consider themselves Christian and they are very good people. And so I'm sure that those exist. I just don't know how to recommend one to Amber. I'm just so scared of all of them because so many of them also lie about what they believe. Like the ones who are like, we welcome all people. But they're like, when you get in, they're like, well, if you're gay, we welcome you, but you have to stop being gay. You know, like that's a lot of that. And they do that a lot in LA, rainbow flag outside of churches. And you're like, oh, welcome the gays. And they're like, we do. But hang on. And then they close the door behind you and you're like,
oh, shit, I'm trapped.
yeah. Oh, you want to stay here? You want to go? No, you better stop sucking the dick, mister. So we have these kids who are in this really flooded area of this already extreme behavior. And again, they have gone to these campuses and they have become so successful that a new white nationalist group for the LDS has cropped up in the last decade. And they even have their own little flag and everything.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, it's really cute.
It's a beehive on top of a gun with a little...
I know it looks like a gun. It's actually not what that is.
It's a tomahawk on the side.
No, you'll never
Dynamite.
guess. You'll never guess what this thing is.
Dynamite. It's an axe.
It's not.
It's the thing you roll out on the beach.
Nope. What?
Caftan. No, not a caftan. It's like it's... What is it?
It's a beach. It's a beach blanket.
It's a beach blanket.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Can you imagine the white nationalist group was just like, yeah, we just wanted to get wasted away on Margaritaville, you know, but like we hate Jewish people. So, so their flag, as you can see here, Amber, displays behind in the background. It's a beehive, which is the symbol represented by the word Deseret, which is supposed to be translated into the word beehive. So the beehive itself is a big iconography in the Mormon world. So that is the Mormon representation on this flag. The thing that's in front of it, I learned, is called a fazit. And it is a symbol associated with fascism and Nazism that just didn't get the same, props, the same flowers as the swastika did, but it is the same idea of showing fascism. So this thing, a fazit, it's basically representing a bundle of sticks with a hatchet.
Like what they say in Britain.
Yes, it is very funny because it is rooted in the same word for the word that Americans use as the gay slur, the F slur. It is the same word, essentially. But this is a fascist version of that word.
I'm looking it
up.
A
bundle of sticks.
Whoa.
I think most of you know what that is translated to.
I'm looking it up on Google, and they're just showing me toys. Like, there's no...
Yeah, I wouldn't...
Because it's a slur, that's why... Oop, I'll get out of here.
It's also... I spelled it phonetically in the script. It's spelled much different than this.
Okay.
So, yeah, there is now a fascist, Nazi, right-wing extremist, specifically Latter-day Saints extremist group for young men that has now been developed since 2017.
What are they called?
They are called Deseret Nationalists, and we're going to get into them much deeper next week, and some more connections to Latter-day Saints boys who have done some really bad things in the last few years. So next week, we're going to talk about domestic terrorism within white nationalist groups that have spoken to young LDS men and connect how those groups, the young ones, connect to the older LDS members too, like the 3%ers and the Oath Keepers. And all of it is just really rebranding Book of Mormon white supremacy.
I hate this. I mean, I'm glad we're discussing it, but it's like sitting in, it reminds me of like laying in bed and scrolling through Twitter and being like, oh my God.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's just like living in, because I'm pretty empathetic and I like to get in the headspace of someone that thinks a certain way. It's living in hell. It's living in hell. It's all like, how do I get back at you? How do I get under your skin? How do I fuck you up?
I can't fathom how a lot of these people must feel on a day-to-day basis. And it's not because I want to give them empathy. It's that it must be so awful.
It's got to be hard. Like, your life has to be really shitty.
Yeah.
Every waking moment. And your dreams are just, do you just go to bed drunk and not even dream?
I don't even think some of these people drink or anything. I think that they just live fully on rage. Like, I don't really know how else to explain that. It's hard to fathom the day to day. Although I would say, if you guys want to hear a little bit about that, there is a fantastic ProPublica article called The Militia and the Mole. I think I've mentioned it on the live stream before, but on ProPublica.org, it is called The Militia and the Mole. It is by Joshua Kaplan, and it describes a man who went undercover in the extremist groups in Utah and Idaho for 2 years. And this reporter got all of his files.
He's gay, right?
Is
it
gay.
that one? Damn,
Yes.
that's so scary.
Yeah.
I think the best way to get back at these people is to laugh and have a good day.
For sure. Please
Really?
don't, I wouldn't recommend people go infiltrate
No.
the movement, but guys like this guy who was the mole, he already was like a little bit of out there kind of person. I think you have to be a little bit to behave in that way, but It's a really interesting study if you want to hear a little bit about the people's day-to-day. It's kind of sad more than anything.
Man.
But yeah, so let's end here because that was a lot of information, and we're going to go right back into how the white nationalist movement, it works inside the church and how it's been there the whole time.
Yay.
Yay. Coming up next week, sometimes it feels like hate is a national pastime. For some states, there is an ever-present tension threatening to boil over into violence. Idaho has been ringing an extremist dinner bell for decades, and the local Mormon missionaries have been listening.